Hey everyone, I'm Lindsay Labonte. You're tuning in to Real People Real Estate, where we sit down with folks right here in Western Massachusetts who are involved in anything real estate related. First-time home buyers, seasoned investors, attorneys, real estate agents, anybody that's working to build real estate right here in the Pioneer Valley. There's a lot of great things going on. So I am here with a very special guest today, Attorney Roger Lipton. How you doing?
Hi, Lindsay. How are you?
Good, good. I'm going to read your bio, which is really extensive. You have a tremendous career, so I have to condense it down. So forgive me if I miss anything. But you're the managing partner of Green Miles and Lipton, one of them, and a standout professional, more than 40 years of experience.
True.
In real estate law and civil litigation too. We were just talking a little bit about the litigation side. New York City native and
Yes.
third generation attorney.
Yes, I am.
That's amazing. And Western Mass has been your home since 1971, working with anybody from first-time home buyers, municipalities, developers, national mortgage lenders, so variety of experience there. Over the years, you've successfully represented clients in multi-million-dollar real estate deals, landmark zoning disputes, wrongful death claims, and even the first same-sex divorce case in Hampshire County.
That's
amazing. You're also an ALTA registry member and a longtime agent for First American Title. Perfect. So you have such deep knowledge and community service. So many places we could go here. We're going to start with just kind of some opening questions to get going, and then we'll dive in because you've got, I'm sure, a ton of stories that you could tell us about. So this is an easy one. What do you want me to call you today?
Roger.
Roger's okay? Okay, perfect. And if your best friend was here, sitting next to us right now, how would they describe you in just 3 words? This is kind of a tricky one to start off with.
Good sense of humor.
Awesome.
4 words.
Okay, perfect. Oh, the sentence, that's great. All right. And what's something you've been really proud of most recently professionally?
Keeping our firm together during the pandemic presented challenges.
Yeah.
We have right now 6 lawyers. We've had as many as 10 lawyers.
Yeah.
And as almost everybody knows, there was an unprecedented period when we couldn't go out, almost had to shelter in place, but there were salaries to be paid, there was rent to be paid.
Yeah, that's
there were
huge.
people calling who wanted work done, so we had to figure out a workable model, and we did, and it's kind of cool to look back at that.
Yeah, that was definitely huge. I remember those, early days in March, right, when we all kind of got together and said, all right, at least on the real estate side, how are we going to keep closings going, and what's that going to look like? So, yeah, that was tremendous. What's your earliest memory tied to real estate or home? Thinking back to young Roger, what was the first time you realized, like, oh, people own their homes?
Well, I grew up in an apartment building in Queens, in New York City. We would go up periodically to visit my cousin and his parents in Connecticut. They lived in Stamford, Connecticut, and that was the drive into the country. And my Uncle Murray and Aunt Edith had a nice, I think it was a single-family home in a very nice area of Stamford. But we would play in the backyard, and there was grass there, and there was some rocks and hills, and that was it.
Felt like home, yeah.
Well, it didn't feel like my home.
Right,
I mean, it
but
felt
it was
like it was like a trip to the country.
Yeah.
It was like a trip to the country.
Yeah.
My cousin Jamie was kind of we were almost like the identical age, but he was a little bit more rough and tumble than me in terms of the knowledge of the woods and obviously his backyard. I remember sort of trying to take command of a certain big rock there and challenging each other.
Right. So that was your claim on it.
Yeah.
And so you grew up in the city, and then that was an experience visiting family in more of a country setting, it sounds like. What brought you to Western Massachusetts?
Well, I went to college in Boston University, and then actually when I was a sophomore, took a cross-country trip with my buddy Andy and saw the great outdoors and all the national parks, and it was kind of hard to then think you're going to spend the rest of your life in the smog,
Right.
crime-ridden,
Right.
traffic
Right.
congested city. And so then I also spent some time at UMass visiting some friends. And then,
Yeah.
so these hills out here, they're not as big as the Rockies, but they're nice
They'll
hills.
do. They're good enough. Yeah.
So I
That's
just
great.
went to law school in Springfield, Western New England.
Okay.
And so that's basically
Okay.
it.
So were you already living here when you decided you wanted to go to law school? Or was that?
Yes, I was living in Ashfield.
Okay. And your family, so you said I said in your bio, 3 generations of attorneys. How did you decide what type of practice you wanted to go into? Were you influenced by
For
family?
whatever reason, I was never interested in criminal law. So there's a big division in the law, civil versus criminal. So that eliminated a lot. And then on the civil side, I was drawn to land ownership, just thinking about it for myself, that I eventually wanted to buy and build on a piece of land. So in law school, I especially paid attention to the
Sure.
real estate courses.
Yeah.
And then when I got out of law school, one of my very early cases, a friend said, "Would you represent me? I'm buying a house in Montague."
Wow.
And I said yes. And
Yeah.
I had to then really, drill down. Okay, well, how do you do a closing?
Right.
What is
Right.
what is involved?
How do you figure this out?
Yeah.
What year was that?
1983.
83.
Yeah.
Wow. So you've worked with, home buyers like that all the way up to municipalities and big corporations. It sounds like bigger real estate development deals. What's the biggest difference you see, and I'm sure there's many, but between, helping a family buy a new house versus a corporation or a land development deal, or something where you're working more on the business side rather than the personal side?
So surprisingly, there are a lot of similarities. I'll deal with the differences in a minute. The similarities would be there's a purchase and sale agreement, which is a governing document that each side has to adhere to. So when there's more money involved, obviously there's more attention paid to the negotiation and drafting of the purchase and sale agreement. On the the residential side, there are certain forms that are similar. In Hampshire County, our bar association about 6 years ago finally created a uniform purchase and sale agreement. That's, each side's free to vary from it, but it has made things a bit easier. So we start with the uniform model purchase and sale agreement. Once the document is signed, either for the residential or commercial, so then it's a script to a certain degree. You have your mortgage contingency date, which is huge, especially for buyers, because that's the date by which the buyer/borrower has to get their mortgage approval. It's huge for the seller too, because you want to know if the deal is going to go through.
Right.
So that's certainly very similar in each side. On the commercial side, there's often permitting involved, where certain permits have to be obtained. So I actually met with a new client this morning who wants to buy a liquor store. So in that scenario, obtaining approval from our state Alcohol Beverages and Control Commission is a very key component of that. So that whole permitting side takes a life of its own, and there's a lot of focus on that. The dollars and the dollar size of the deal actually doesn't make that much of a difference.
When it comes down to it, it's the contract.
In fact, my wife often asks me, I'll say I've got a closing tomorrow involving a house in such and such town, let's say Easthampton, and she might say, well, how much is the price? And often I'll surprise her by saying, I don't know.
Right.
Well, how can you not know?
Yeah.
Well, I knew it when we approved the deal. I've got 5 or 6 others pending this week. And my attention was on getting everything done that's required, and the amount of the purchase price is not a driving factor in what I'm doing.
It's the people, it's the outcome. That's
I mean,
interesting.
obviously on the day of the closing, I know how much money to pay or to receive, but so that's just sort of a humorous thing.
Yeah.
And,
So more similarities than differences in the process. Yeah. And we were talking before we started recording a little bit about the title exam, which is a part of the process. And I'd love to hear your experience just in general, first of all. What does a title exam even mean? Because some listeners, if they have never bought before, they may not even know. Let's start there.
Okay, so each state has their own requirements. I'm licensed in Massachusetts. I also have a New York license, but I don't practice there. So we'll talk about Massachusetts. And in Massachusetts, the buyer has an opportunity, and it should always be exercised, to have a title search performed, which is a 50-year look back at everything that's happened, we say, in the Registry of Deeds. The Registry of Deeds is a county office that houses not only deeds, but mortgages, liens, mechanics liens, homesteads, any document that affects, we call it the title, goes into the Registry of Deeds. And so let's take the example, and we're in a building that has the Registry of Motor Vehicles. Right. Everyone's familiar with the title to their vehicle. That's a very simple document. Either you own it or you don't own it. Your name's on it, hopefully. And there might be...
Hopefully it's not someone else's name and you're driving it.
a bank name, as if the bank has a bank loan, which in that case the bank keeps the certificate of title. But there's not much more that can happen with that document.
Sure.
In real estate, the deed is the hallmark document similar to a certificate of title that indicates ownership, but you're not going around with your original deed. In fact, the original deed doesn't have any meaning once it's recorded at the Registry of Deeds. That's the official record of it. But a lot can happen to affect the quality of the deed that's never going to appear on the face of the document. Where does it appear? It appears in that 50-year chain of what has happened at the Registry of Deeds. So, I'll give an example. A seller could be selling a piece of property and they know they have one mortgage, let's say with Easthampton Savings Bank, and we know it's got to be paid off at the closing. Easy. But somewhere in the past, a prior owner might have had a mortgage with Florence Bank that, at least as far as the Registry of Deeds is concerned, was never paid off.
Doesn't show its discharge.
How can that be?
Right.
A very common scenario is there's a piece of paper called a discharge, which is important, that has to go into the Registry of Deeds that the bank signs when they get the payoff. And there is a long history in Massachusetts of those documents getting lost. And that's a whole another story, which we don't have to get into. But they can be lost. It doesn't normally mean that the bank hasn't been paid.
Right.
But
they just never recorded.
The buyer's attorney, when they get the title search from their title examiner, I used to do the title searches myself, but we have a professional attorney who does those now as his specialty. He'll send me the report. He might say, hey, Roger, we call it a missing discharge. We got a missing discharge from it has to be in the last 25 years, really. So let's say 1998. Is that 25 years ago? No.
2000. Yeah, 2000.
Right, 2000.
I know. How crazy is that?
It's actually 35 years. So let's
say 35. Okay, then 90.
So let's say 1980. Roger, I got a missing discharge from 1998.
Yeah.
Okay, Jim, we're on it. And so if it was Florence Bank, that's easy. We can call it Florence Bank. They're still in existence. If it was Vanguard Bank, that bank doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
All right. Who is a successor to Vanguard Bank? I actually know it, but there are some that are trickier, out-of-state lenders. The internet's a great help because the internet can help you track it.
Yeah.
But before the internet came along,
we
had a book that told you the history of failed banks and who took them over, and sometimes the FDIC, the federal government, came in and took over banks. So that can get a little tricky there. If the bank really wasn't paid, they most likely would have started foreclosure a long time before now. But we can't be sure. So we have to search that down. There could be liens. People have been sued. Maybe they paid off whoever sued them, but that document, which is called a release, didn't get into the registry. So there's a whole
So you're basically a detective when you're helping people go through the
It does
title
help.
search
Does help
property.
to have good detective
Yeah,
skills. Yes.
that's awesome.
Yeah. All right. So you want to hear about
I was going to say, tell me something. Yeah, tell me
more
something
wild
that's
story.
that's wild and crazy with title.
So now a lot of times clients say to me, "Hey, Attorney Lipton, this property has been sold, let's say 6 times in the last 20 years. I know it because I looked on the registry of deeds."
Right.
Nowadays with the internet, that's not
Right,
hard
there's
to
a
do.
website, right? It's all public records. Yeah.
The older days, you had to hike down to the registry. And say it's in Springfield, where in my experience, properties turn over more quickly.
Sure.
You might say, "Hey, this property's been sold 6 times in the last 20 years. So how can there be a title defect? I would have had a title search each time." It's a good point, but it's not a guaranteed point. Someone could have made an error.
Yeah.
And there could be something very recent that popped up.
Right.
But that's the case where there's an existing house that's been on the same parcel of land without the boundaries having been changed. Where you run into a more intense situation is if you have a new development of some sort, say a new subdivision or a new condominium is created. So, back in the day, there was a brand new condominium in Northampton, which is a well-known condominium, but I won't mention it. And as it turns out, I was representing the first buyer of any of the condominiums in that unit.
Wow.
So a developer had made a decision. They bought, I believe it was a pre-existing apartment complex, and I don't think they were brand new at the time, but so there's a method you can create condominiums out of apartment buildings.
Yeah.
Actually, since 1963, that's been allowed in Massachusetts. The condominium statute came into effect. And it has to be adhered to very carefully when you create a new condominium. So there's a lot to look at if you're representing the first buyer. So I was aware that I was the first buyer's attorney, so I had my good antenna up. And this is in the days when I was doing my own title searches. So
And it wasn't online, right?
It wasn't online. So it was a part of our routine. We would walk down to the registry of deeds, of which my office is very close to, in the afternoon usually, and you see the other attorneys there and some bankers too.
It must have been fun.
There was collegiality there. And although sometimes if you saw an attorney who
maybe it wasn't
you
fun.
didn't want
Maybe
to
you
give
wanted to
bad
bump their
news to,
shoulder.
there was a back room where the survey plans were kept.
Oh, you could
So
sneak through.
You sneak into the back room.
Gosh.
But anyway,
Okay.
so I searched the title, and this had been an old farm, and as was typical before my time, farmers had a lot of kids and often died owning real estate.
Right.
And so the transfer of the real estate would not occur through a deed, but through a will. So that's a whole nother method of transferring real estate, which is handled by the registry of probate. And the registry of probate was next door to the registry of deeds in those days, because you'd often have to just go, it was upstairs to look at the wills.
Sure.
So I did that, and I'm looking at the will, and this farmer had 7 kids. And I see 6 sign-offs,
Oh.
and I'm double-checking. And it was a big Boston firm that was representing the developer because there was a lot of money involved. So I stirred up my courage, and I called the Boston lawyer, and I said, "Look,
You forgot a kid. Yeah.
something's missing here.
Wow.
I can't close." "What do you mean you can't close? Multi-million-dollar deal. We're coming out, I think maybe in 2 days. Well, let's say it's coming out on a Friday, and this is a Wednesday." I said, "I think I could fax." Then I said, "I'll fax you my notes.
Yep.
You tell me if I'm wrong."
Yeah.
And I didn't hear back, I don't think, until that Friday. And so I agreed to meet at the registry, but I wasn't going to do the closing, but I talked to him because that's a chance to see him. He was there, and he was kind of aggressive, which you think of a big city lawyer, and he had an assistant or 2 with him. And eventually he said, "Lipton's right." And this is right at the registry of deeds. And he said to one of his younger attorneys, "You get on the plane," because somehow one of us figured out the person that was last living in Florida.
Yeah.
"You get on a plane You get down to Florida, you get that missing signature.
Wow.
And so it was rather loud because it was in this
Yeah.
public registry of deeds. And I felt vindicated that I was right, and I was also happy that I hadn't stumbled into a title defect.
Something that was completely insurmountable.
A title defect.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have the resources to go down to Florida, chase someone. So then they separated, and I probably had some other title work that I could do, so I hung out in the registry of deeds a little bit. A very well-known lawyer, who was like a generation above me, came over to me afterwards. He said, "Roger, I knew about that title defect. I was waiting for somebody to find it."
Wow.
And if you knew this lawyer, that was his personality to a T.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's not going to go out of his way
to fix something.
to tip it off because it wasn't his case, but somehow he knew the family, or he knew about this.
Interesting.
And he patted me on the back.
Wow.
He said,
How cool.
"Good job, boy."
Full circle. Yeah, exactly. That was your coming to a moment.
And so the footnote to the story is this. There's a whole industry called title insurance, which can be a whole subject for a separate podcast. But title insurance is there to give insurance coverage to potential defects and sometimes to known defects.
Yeah.
So because this law firm had some clout, they got a title insurance company to agree to insure their whole condominium project and all the units that were being sold. And right over is the phrase, right over this defect.
Okay.
So that
so they were able to
they
continue
viewed it
on.
as, what's the risk
Yeah.
of this person coming back and claiming ownership, and what's the monetary value of that risk, and what's the premium that we're going to gain by closing on this big multi-million dollar deal where there'll be a bunch of other, because there was a bunch of other condominiums units that were ready to be sold after my one.
Yeah. So you paved the way for everybody to be able to do it there.
I did.
Yeah.
And
that's huge.
So I don't know if it was Monday or Tuesday, but soon after we did have our closing.
Yeah, well, that's
and the
awesome.
client was happy.
That is so great. How do you, so when someone, you're representing someone, whether it's a business or an individual, and you find some potential issue like that, I mean, did you tell your people?
My clients?
What was going on, or do you try to solve it first, or a little bit of both?
It depends on who the client is, because some things could be solved with a quick phone call or nowadays email. And so why upset the client on something but you don't want to let something go too long, because then
there's a balance.
Clients say, "Well, why didn't you tell me?"
Yeah.
I mean, that's a legitimate thing.
Totally.
So in any profession, I'm sure you have it too, you sort of balance. If there's bad news, do you immediately tell the world, or can you solve it? So we try to solve. We're problem solvers as lawyers. So we are.
Keeps you interested too, right? I mean, I would imagine how many people have you worked with over the years? Thousands, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've never added it up.
It's got to be tens of thousands, I'm sure, and every single one is slightly different, right? No person's exactly the same. No contract's exactly the same. That's interesting.
Right, and that actually, just dealing with people is a whole art. Well, let's say you have a married couple. I mean, you can't constantly be keeping them both informed. Well, the emails you can more, but still in the current day. I had my clients this morning. I said, email the best way to reach you. No, I want to have a phone call. Then I'll look at, tell me there's an email coming. So that's all kind of old school. And but
there's a mix.
You try to keep your clients informed. My favorite is, in the older days, people used to, in the summer, especially when a lot of closings occur, say, "Oh, I'm going to be, taken off on vacation for 2 weeks. You won't be able to reach me."
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'll come back the day before the closing, and then a lot of action can happen then. And I can't reach my client now. What am I going to do?
Right. Yeah, it's really cool to hear about. Well, you keep saying the olden days.
I think I'm going to stop saying that. Maybe we're too old.
But you know what? So how have you? So you've seen that. So 40 years, right? So you've seen a shift in the way business is done, and yet a lot of the process, I'm sure, is similar. Maybe not the process, but the contingencies you were mentioning that have to be met, clear title, and all that. How have you been able to maintain relationships when you went from belly to belly in the registry, talking chatting it up with the other attorneys, keeping each other informed or not, like that other attorney who knew something and didn't tell you, to now it's maybe a little more isolated in a way because we're working on our computers. It's also efficient. I mean, what do you, pros and cons? Do you think
it's a big
one's better
topic.
than the other?
A big topic. First of all, my computer skills have increased dramatically since the pandemic started because I do work I do work at home a lot. Which is good. I mean, I enjoy having learned to the level that I want to be at. I mean, sometimes in the back of my mind, well, why do I have to be doing this and downloading this, that, and the other thing?
It's a lot more button clicking.
Didn't go to law school for that.
Yeah.
But it's a good skill to have. No question about it. Good life skill to have. E-recording. Let's talk about e-recording a little bit.
Yeah.
So, e-recording came on board about 2 years probably before the pandemic started. And when I say e-recording, what I mean is we don't have to physically hike over to the registry of deeds to record the deed and mortgage and the homestead physical pieces of paper like we used to with a live check.
Yeah.
So nowadays, computers, or I should say, lawyers are set up through a certain login and company affiliations to scan documents in. They have access to our dedicated bank account, which have the proper funds, and shoot the documents over to the registry of deeds.
Okay.
They look at them, and if they're acceptable, they approve them, and then that key moment, the deed is recorded, and they pull the money out of our account. But because of that ability, we're dealing with some lawyers now from Worcester, Boston. That big closing was a little bit unique. We rarely had
didn't happen.
out-of-state, out-of-county attorneys come. I mean, we would have obviously Hampden County and Franklin County. It's all kind of the same because of 91. But
you had to physically
even
be
Worcester
there.
or Berkshire County, those were like, why am I going to do a closing over there? I got to spend half a day or more.
There were couriers. I remember paying.
There were couriers. Yeah. And when I was doing title searches, I remember doing title search in Berkshire County, and some other attorney said, well, you better hope you can finish the title in that one day, because then you got to make a second trip out to Berkshire County, not counting then you can be there for the closing. But so we are sort of meeting attorneys who we never met before, and whereas prior to that, I generally knew all the attorneys I was dealing with. But that's a good experience. People are nice to each other, and we have a goal of getting the job done. So I don't really view any deficit there. I did a closing myself, though, in Dedham, and I never would have done a closing over there. And it was a good priced home, so everybody got happy.
So even though you have to click more buttons and upload and download, it's a little more efficient that way. That's great. Well, we're almost coming up on the end of our time here, which always flies by. I've got some kind of funny questions to wrap up with a little bit, and I'm gonna put this first one back to the olden days, because I'm just envisioning the registry hopping with people. So when you all went to the registry to record and do your search, coffee or cocktails while you were there? Or before or after?
Coffee.
Coffee, okay, probably a good answer. Cocktails after to celebrate, maybe. What is one local business that you love supporting right now?
Paul and Elizabeth's.
Oh, wonderful.
Great food, great seafood.
Yes, I love the lunch special, the parm encrusted salmon. I might have to get that pretty soon. Describe your experience in working in real estate in the different transactions you've done in just one word.
Dynamic.
Awesome. What's your favorite room in a house?
My screened-in porch, because I go out there to play guitar and banjo lately. I've taken up banjo.
Awesome.
And I don't have to bother anybody.
Oh, that's really cool. Do you play for yourself, or do you play
just for
live
myself? I'm a living room musician, but I did meet my wife that way, so that's a good thing.
That's awesome. That could be a whole other conversation. We've got a few different segments now. What's one thing about real estate purchases, I guess we'll stick with purchases, that you wish more people would understand?
Pay attention to their inbox and their emails, because sometimes we send emails and don't call someone saying, look at your email, because that's kind of a waste of time, but some people don't look at their emails, especially when you know there's something important coming up.
Yeah, definitely. That's probably a change from the old days. What was it in the old days? What did people have to pay attention to? Not their emails.
Well, the funny thing about those days is when faxes came along.
Faxes?
Yeah, because we were practicing before there were fax machines. Your day was set when the mail came, which in our office was at noon, because then you would see new stuff and you'd deal with it. And of course there'd be phone calls, but then when faxes came along, you could be interrupted at any point in the day. So that was really the sea change. Okay, and faxes still exist, so there you go.
Boundaries, right? How do you get, you get stuck with your emails because things just fly at you. It all started with the fax. Good to know. Any last parting wisdom, stories?
If you have a little time for a closing when they gone.
I love what
closing gone bad.
Yeah, let's hear something.
So
crazy.
There's a lot of focus nowadays on fraud and wire transactions are a target of hacksters. So we have to be very careful when wires are sent. So I had a closing, and my client tried to pass me a bad check, a check for $100,000, Lindsay.
Wow.
That was going to be used to purchase a piece of raw land in Greenfield area. And so what would have happened is if I had accepted the check, we would have put it into our firm's trust account. It would have bounced, but we would have written checks, which is what lawyers do, because I was a buyer's attorney,
probably
on the day of the closing. And those checks would have bounced. Would have recorded the deed. And there's a report that goes to the Board of Bar Overseers that monitors lawyers if you have passed a bad check, which it should go. So the way I do my closings, I have one dedicated briefcase, my real estate briefcase, and I have a sequence when someone hands me the check at the closing, I put it in a certain spot so I don't lose it. Never lost a check yet.
Knock on wood, quick.
And there were a number of people there at the closing. Nowadays, not so many are at the closing, but there were a number of people there. So I was talking, keeping track of stuff. The person hands me the check when I ask for it. I look at it as I'm putting it into my real estate safe spot in my briefcase, or my check safe spot, and a little voice called out, Roger,
looked funky.
Look at that check again.
Wow.
And so, but I didn't want it to seem too obvious.
Like
I just trusted my client.
So
I created some space for myself. I said I have to go to the computer and do the last minute rundown. I look at it then, and remember, it's $100,000. The last 3 zeros are in a different font than the first 2.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're like italic and they're at an angle. That's not look good. So, with the cell phone error, so I quickly called the bank that it was written on, which was a local bank, and miraculously, the teller who prepared that check answered the phone, Lindsay. Like,
oh my gosh,
unreal
how lucky is that?
And I said,
small town helps, right?
And I said, I told her who I was, told her the amount of the check, told her the firm name, and she said, sir, if that check is anything more than $100, it's no good.
Oh my gosh.
I remember writing that, preparing that check.
So
I remember your firm's name, because it's got a couple of names. I had to make sure they spelled right. Don't negotiate that check.
Oh my gosh.
I said, thank you, ma'am.
Wow.
So then I went back into the closing room at the Registry of Deeds in Franklin County. My client, though, she actually had a criminal record. Her antenna had gone up.
Knew something was up.
She said, Lipton's gone too long. I'm fleeing.
She left.
She started leaving. No, but I saw her.
Okay.
We crossed paths.
Oh my gosh.
I said, you gave me a bad check. And she was like stone silence. I said,
oh no.
Do you have $100,000 to complete this deal? I said, Mr. Lipton, I've never had $100,000.
Oh no.
There wasn't any bank loan involved.
So but there's other work that was done,
So the whole thing blew up. She fled. And I had to go back in and tell the seller's attorney. Her boyfriend, who supposedly he claimed he was innocent. the two sellers,
Oh,
who were
no.
an elderly couple,
Thought
the
their
two,
land was
the
selling and it
two
wasn't.
brokers,
Yeah.
they started, the two elderly couple, they started crying.
Oh no. Oh my gosh.
The brokers,
terrible.
one of them anyway, said, "Uh-oh, I didn't cash the deposit check."
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you give a
Oh,
deposit, 10%
yeah.
deposit when you're buying raw
Right.
land. So that was a
Probably
bad
would've
check
bet.
too.
Yeah.
If she had, this
Yeah.
would have come to light. So
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
I was upset that we lost
Yeah,
my
yeah.
little lawyer's fee for the day.
Right.
But I was thrilled that we had
That it didn't go beyond that.
avoided the Board
Yeah.
of Bar Overseas game.
That's a
I went
huge
back to the
catch.
office, told the other lawyers, and we're usually all pretty reserved about stuff, but people were patting me on the
Oh
back
my
with that
gosh.
one too.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, so-
I mean, and that's people ask all the time, what can go wrong? And I think I
That's
don't know
like an
about you, but
extreme example,
it is an
yeah.
extreme
Yeah.
example. But I always say, once you're on record, that's when you can really celebrate. And not that you want to make people nervous, but there are times when crazy things happen. That's one of the crazier ones, though. That's a good,
Yeah.
well, a good bad story, but a good story.
And it didn't even make sense. Unfortunately, she had like this habit of doing bad stuff. Because what
Yeah.
are you going to do if
Yeah.
you own piece of land? It's
Right.
not like a car; you can
Right.
drive it out of state. So she would
It's
have
not
been
something to quickly
caught
turn
anyway.
over or anything. Yeah, that's interesting. Right. What's the motive? That's a whole other, that's your criminal case. side.
Criminology, yeah.
Well, thank you for all the story sharing, and thank you so much for being here. Really, really appreciate it. It was a
Very
fun
easy to talk
fun
to you.
time.
So you
Yeah, we
brought
could
out some
stay
stuff.
even longer. We've got more. Next future podcast, you'll be on the list. So,
Okay.
So thanks everybody for tuning in to another episode of Real People, Real Estate. We hope you were inspired and enjoyed our conversation. And if you want to come on and be a guest, check out the link in the bio, and we'd love to have you on here. We'll see you in a couple weeks, or we'll see you right around town.